1 minute, folks. 1 minute, and we'll get to hear this Liberia, what is God up to in Liberia, what did he get to do in and through Jim and Cindy and Pastor Aaron. So grab your seats now in the sanctuary. If you need to hit that bathroom one last time or grab that cup of coffee, please do so, and then make your way to the sanctuary.
All right, folks. We'll trust you if you grab your coffee. As an adult, we'll trust you. We'll go ahead and get started. You gotta love it when you get family encouragement to wear your get-up. So myself, Jim, and Cindy, you want to stand up because you have really fun garb to show off too. So we are going to tell you a little bit about what we experienced in Liberia. This is over the course of probably a month because Jim and I were down there. Jim and I sounds like Gemini. Jim and I were down in Liberia, and then was it a week later? Just under a week later, Cindy came, and then you were there for 2 weeks. So a lot of different things to share with you, and if you know of anyone who's not here this morning that would want to hear about this, just let us know. We'd be happy to talk with them. Even more so if you're interested in going, we'd be happy to talk with them as well. So we'll go back and forth. This first part will be me and Jim and I. Jim and I, it's just going to stick now. So the Jim and I will do this because we went the same week, so a lot of ours overlap. So we'll kind of share back and forth, and then Cindy gets like the second half, because she was there twice as long as we were, and got to see a lot of really, really cool things. So we'll start with just like what travel and culture was like. So Jim, you want to say anything about these pictures?
Yeah, so, is this working?
Yeah, you're good.
There we go. Okay. So, yeah, I had to include the airplane photo because it's a 787, but we flew from Minneapolis to Chicago, and then Chicago to Brussels, and then Brussels to Sierra Leone, and then Sierra Leone on to Liberia. So it's a quick, 4-stop hop to Liberia. It only takes like 30 some hours total travel time one way. So it wasn't as bad, I don't think, as I don't know, this is my second time. It wasn't as bad as the first time. I was kind of used to it. Nothing exciting happened. Well, exciting did happen. Pastor Matthew and Patience and Anna were booked on on a different flight than we were, which was supposed to leave an hour, like 3:30 from Minneapolis to Chicago, and our flight left Chicago at 5, and so that would have left them like 20 minutes to get from one flight to the international flight. So thankfully, the very nice gate agent, because Pastor Matthew is an amazing
He knows people.
He can know anybody like that. He's known them their whole lives in about 30 seconds, and so he sweet talked the gate agent into moving their tickets, so it all went smoothly from there. So,
Which is in a way God
Yes.
showing up, because we were walking and Jim and I were heading off together. Like, where are you going? It's like, well, this is our plane. It's like, no, your plane's down there. It's like, well, my ticket says here. And they're like, our ticket says there. And God made it work because our flight actually happened to be relatively empty, which doesn't happen as much anymore. So yeah, God showed up and kept us safe while we were flying. So that was fun. Jim, you want to say a little bit about these pictures?
yeah. So these two are Roberts International Airport in Monrovia. The first one is the baggage claim area, and if you've ever been to the baggage claim in Minneapolis, you have a huge carousel and a ton of room. Take that carousel into like 1/5 of it, and then have 1,000 people and a whole bunch of yelling, and that's what their baggage claim looks like. And so they're running around, and there's people that are trying to pick up your bags for you so that they can get a tip and all that stuff. They also check your baggage tickets on your way out to make sure you have the right bag, because apparently that's a problem. And then outside the airport is thousands of cars, and you get thrust into the traffic of Liberia in about 30 seconds walking outside the airport. So
yeah, your cultural immersion, you get dropped right in the midst of it. There is no personal bubble in Liberia. And you see it not just because they want to, but it's just like they're used to close quarters. So the illustration of like comparing MSP to the airport is a really great one. And you're basically stepping over, around, and through piles of bags, because international travel is not simple. Very few people just bring one normal-sized bag. You usually have several oversized bags. And everyone's shouting one way or the other. And from an American sensibility, it actually comes across as rude. You think people are being rude and selfish, and they're actually just communicating loud, because everything else is loud and near, so they're just shouting so that they can get to the next thing. I'd say there was very little unkindness that we saw, but from your initial perception, it's just like, this is a lot. So
they're a lot more assertive in their day-to-day. Also, the other thing, a lot of the people that are traveling, I mean, there are some people that I recognize all the way from Minneapolis that flew with us all the way on the different flights. And so a lot of these people, they're visiting home from the States. They're bringing supplies home from the States to their family in Liberia, so a lot of them have oversized packages. And then on the reverse, on the way back, we have the same thing, but they have these huge boxes of food and stuff fish that they want to bring home from Liberia to have it back in the States. And so, they have a lot of bags, but it's either to help their homes or to bring a little piece of home with them back to the States. So.
Just keep in mind, the second largest Liberian population outside of the actual country is Minneapolis. Yeah. So Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park is kind of like the epicenter of that, which is where Pastor Matthew's church originally started. And it moved because of the need of space. But there's still a very large network of, I'll say, like Little Liberia in the Twin Cities. Here's a picture just to give you an idea. This is right as you're going through customs. But I thought it fitted because where it says, "Y'all welcome to Liberia," it's broken English. And it's fast, so they speak English as the main language, but it is very hard to discern because it's so rapid. So when they slow down and talk, it's clear, and you can have normal conversation. But it's 16 tribes, 15 counties, 1 country, and this is actually for like cellular network, which is the first network. But all of those masks are original. That's like for each tribe. Liberia, land mass-wise, about the size of Tennessee. But you have 15 tribes, so each tribe has its own culture and dialect. Even the different prints on what we're wearing have different tribes with them.
Yeah, and one thing I'll mention, if you go back. Yeah. So the bottom left corner one is the symbol for the Bassa tribe, and that is for where we primarily were in that tribal area. And one of the things that we did on my last trip there was someone had given money for Bibles, and so the Bassa language, they have I believe each of them do have their own language, but definitely Bassa has their own language, and so we were finally able to get the Bassa people like 30 copies of a Bible within that language last time. So that was kind of a cool thing that we got to do in addition to like the Gideon Bibles and other things that we were able to give them last time. So
here's a picture outside of our rooms where we stayed, which looks really nice, and it was, but we were also right next to a club.
yeah, off to the right, there's a nightclub there that's, as Pastor Aaron will say.
My room is right at the end of the hallway
Yeah,
near the nightclub, so I got noise-canceling earbuds before I went, and I am really glad I did, because the party starts at 9 and it doesn't end until 2:30.
Yeah, and I slept just fine, so.
Yeah, so it's right by the Atlantic. You'll hear concerns about malaria in Liberia and Africa in general, but we were so close to the ocean that the breeze that typically comes, I didn't see a single mosquito while we were there, and you went further inland. Yeah. Jim, this one's yours too. Just some of the city.
Yeah, so this is kind of what Monrovia and kind of the outskirts of Monrovia look like. That left picture right there is what the market looks like, and so their market, if you think of a market of other countries, if you traveled, most of these markets are tourist traps. This is not one of those. This is what they go to for their day-to-day stuff, and basically it's a whole bunch of carts and tents and little shops, if they are able to rent them, that you just go and you can get anything off the street vendors, and there's tons of people there. I will say that the first time that you do this is kind of let me just say that you're the only white guy, or you're the only two white people within this area, and so you very much notice that in an environment like this, and then you also stick out because not only are you white, they also figure out you're American pretty quick, which usually means you have dollar signs above your head. So the top right picture is a separate market that we passed every day on our way to the camp that we taught at. So just you can see all the tents set up, and then you can see kind of like the bottom right, that is Kiki? Or
KK.
And that's what they travel in a lot of, these small three-wheeled cars or vehicles. And you see a lot of interesting ways of packing them and getting people into them.
And to give you an idea of the density, if you can see that upper right picture, like all those different colored umbrellas, each umbrella is a stand. Maybe 2 umbrellas per stand. So it is tight. And it's loud. And at night when we drive home, ghost town. And all of a sudden it's just like everyone came back the next day. It's a very different episode.
Yeah, and Fridays too. They shut down, I think it's Friday. Everything shuts down Thursday night, Friday. And so it's pretty quiet Friday day, and then it kind of picks back up a little bit. But their day off of the week is, I mean, they shut down significantly.
Oops. Okay. So also traveling cultures. This is a group that came to the convention that Jim and I helped teach at, and that pattern. All the women from their congregation traveled with that pattern. To give you an idea of how many people traveled, this wasn't just the suburbs of a metropolitan area. This is Liberia, the map, and then right there is Zwedru, and then on the left is Monrovia. This church is from Zwedru, and so they had to figure out how to get to Monrovia, and it took them 8 hours, most likely traveling on buses like this. I don't think they sat on the roof, but it's their mass transit. There's no Greyhounds, there's no train. Planes, you don't fly really around within Liberia. You either fly into the country or out of the country. So knowing how devoted people were to get here, to be together, to celebrate, learn, and worship together was very encouraging. And then this is just a picture after the convention wrapped up. You have 2 women. They took everything they brought. It's wrapped in a big blanket, and it's tied in a knot, and it's balancing on their head as they walk out of the camp where the convention was held. So a lot different way in terms of travel, packing, and everything. They took everything with them, and there's a certain joy to that simplicity, I think. But a little bit about kind of what that culture
And
looks
they bring their entire families too. It's not just the adults or one parent. It's the whole.
Yeah, you'll see some kids here in a little bit. For myself, this was my second time back, but there's a 5-year span, and it's amazing how much it was like no time had passed. So this is Reuben. If you remember several years ago, we did a door offering for Reuben's church because it was falling apart. It was basically a mud hut with sticks that reinforced it. He now has a solid cinder block tin roofed church and absolutely loves it. So I was very eager to see Reuben. He was eager to see me. Pastor Samuel is another one. He was not connected with Royal Family Fellowship when I was there 5 years ago. He happened to show up for the convention the week that I taught. And that week decided he wanted to be part of this network that Pastor Matthew is helping develop and wanted to talk with me again once I got back. So I was very, very humbled with how eager they were to meet. And then also, this one was one of my favorites. The woman wearing the lavender headscarf, her name is Johanna. When she saw me, her English is very, very poor, but she was able to come, but she goes, "Remember me, your daughter, me, Johanna." I mean, we hardly had a conversation. She came and introduced herself 5 years ago when I went and said, like, "I have the same name as your daughter." And so when I came back, she wanted to make sure to reinforce that point. And I mean, she did look a little different because it's 5 years, so she'd aged a little bit, but yeah, definitely some familiar faces that we got a chance to see. And there's Pastor Matthew and Patience and Anna, so definite familiar faces. So glad to travel with them. I don't know if I'd want to try to do it alone. But Cindy's been able to do it a couple times. What was surprising is when we got to the camp, our familiar faces were on a poster in 2 different locations, both on the side of a busy street and at the gate of this camp. They did wonders with Photoshop because I didn't pose for it, but they found our picture.
I stole one and brought it back too, so I just haven't found a place to hang it up.
Yeah, so we've got one. One of those banners, yeah. So you might see that, and it might look, I mean, there's a lot going on that's very common for any church if there's a gathering, a revival, a conference, a convention, a guest speaker, and they put these massive banners out. And by United States marketing standards, this is probably not the way you'd want to do it, but there's massive amounts of color, and they try to, and this both works in a good and bad way, to communicate someone's importance based on what they wear. So as you notice, they took a picture of me wearing my robe and my stole. I would have been fine with a normal picture of me, but they wanted anyone to see it like this guy knows his stuff, so to speak. There's even pictures of Matthew. I've never seen Matthew in like a 3-piece suit, but there are pictures of him floating around that are probably close to 15 years old that they will still use because, like, look how fancy, nice, and clean he is. Matthew, though, is very intentional among the network of churches and Royal Family to communicate that the hierarchy in terms of pastor is very small. Because there also is there's a lot of rampant abuse of position, where pastors will give themselves, they will self-title themselves as prophet or apostle. They will have others pay them to then give them the title of pastor. And so it becomes a money scheme. And there's a lot of abuse. They'll say, hey, if you bring $50 to worship next Sunday, you will have a blessing to go with you the next week. So that's sad. So Matthew he's working with Royal Family to figure out how do we take what your culture naturally does and reframe it in such a way. So he used this. He's like, I put that picture of you up there so to grab people's attention because I know how you're actually going to treat them. You're not going to pontificate and be like, oh, well, come and pay me $20 and I'll tell you more, something like that.
And yeah, one of the things that it's a slow process because you're butting up against culture, and you don't want to turn people off from the church by making too many changes at one time. But one of the things is a lot of the pastors, even in Royal Family, what they would do at these conventions is they would be above and behind the speakers of the convention. And Pastor Matthew is slowly changing that mindset. So the last 2 years ago, I think everybody was kind of in that place. Even we were as visitors because we're very distinguished guests to them. And so they moved probably half of the entourage, I guess, to the floor with the rest of everybody. So it was good to see that kind of transition from everyone being up and behind and kind of, looking down to just being, on the ground level too. So,
yeah. So here's, learn and lead. I mean, that's one of our values here at Christ Victorious. This is also what's happening at the convention. These are several of the pastors that were coming. Some of them were in a way that's slightly different than here. They were ordained into being a pastor, which also means then the government sees them that way, which does impact their pay. So it's just like you're not just going around as a self-proclaimed pastor, like you have a legit job. So a lot of them have worked towards that. And some of them, they're coming from a variety of places. Some in Monrovia, which is close by. They might have traveled a half hour, some 50 minutes, and then the pastor from his wage, where it's at least 8 to get there. But these are some of the individuals we had the chance to interact with. Here's the camp, just a few pictures of it. So there's a large gathering place, but a lot of it more tropical looking, a lot of sun. We prayed for the weather to be like it is today, just so you could get a flavor of Liberia. Just kidding, just happened that way. But the camp was just a large camp next to the Atlantic. Here's some more pictures. So Jim, that bottom right, was that when we walked down from the camp?
So we were looking at, Pastor Aaron is going to talk more about the baptism, but we were looking for a good clean spot to do the baptism, and we walked to the Atlantic, which is, if you look in the top left picture, it's that building, it's across like a lagoon, and then there's a whole beach area. And so that's the beach of the Atlantic. That's a fishing village there. And so they're all getting their, like, literally getting their nets, ready. They're getting their fish from the catch of the morning cleaned or whatever they do with them. And so, that's their lives. So they go out, throw the nets in, like the Bible, and then they bring them in, clean, and go out and do it again. So.
Now, we had only one enclosed building, and then there's a larger area, which you'll see when Cindy talks. But this is where Jim got to teach. So there's Jim teaching underneath palm trees in the sand. Like, it looks amazing, and there was a breeze, too.
Yes. I lucked out and got the nice, breezy, cooler area, shady area, too. So, and it's funny, too, because you're teaching, and we taught in the morning where it was cooler. It definitely got warm in the day, but while I was teaching, there's chickens running around too. So I like to pace. As you haven't noticed, I don't like to stand still when I'm talking or in front of people, and so you're trying not to step on the chickens running around. And so, but also as it gets warmer, a lot of them, they do pay attention, but there's also a large number that sort of are doing this and look like they're falling asleep, and that you just get used to. And it is hot, and they have traveled a lot, and they probably don't get a lot of sleep in these places. But yeah, this is my group that I taught, the overall group.
If you can find Jim, he's the white guy.
Yeah, I'm on the right side there. So Pastor Aaron had the pastors and leaders, and I had lay people, members, and things. And so I had ages from, there's a couple kids all the way up to quite old, probably 80s, I guess. And so I taught a wide range of them, and they were a good group. A lot of them, you're talking about the English and understanding them. Some of them are really hard to understand when they're asking questions, but thankfully, and I totally give credit to the Holy Spirit for this, there are always people around that can help translate for me. So, because sometimes it's like, I have no idea what you're saying, I'm sorry. But there's people that help. And then it's really interesting because they are so hungry for it that when they start answering questions, you can just see that their hearts are really into it. And one of the things that I observed my first trip, and that I tried to do this one, is that they will try to, depending on it, they'll ask me, but some of them will jump in and try to answer it themselves. And I have learned to kind of step back and see them try to discuss it amongst themselves too, and then jump in if I'm needed. And so it's kind of cool just to see them use each other to grow, because we're not there all year or all the time. So they need to, we're not always going to answer questions, but it's good to see that.
What did you teach them?
So the theme of the conference was Nehemiah 2, where Nehemiah is starting to rebuild Jerusalem and talking to the people about taking part in rebuilding. So usually that Bible verse is used as kind of a leadership thing, but this is more of, now that you know the Bible, you know the stories, you kind of have a basis for your own faith. What can you do to go out and show that? What can you do to go out and use that? So basically I talked about I went all the way back to the fall and talked about Moses and all the way up to Jesus, and kind of what people have done to show their faith throughout the Bible. And then the last part was, what can they practically go out and do to show that? So yeah, that's what I taught.
So here's where I taught. So this is inside the building, and the individuals that were there. We did have fans, just like we have fans here. There's no air conditioning though, and occasionally the generator would just stop. So it could be it ran out of gas. It could be there was an electric short. And so then you just waited until it was done. You got used to it, honestly, and you drank a ton of water. Some of the leaders that I got a chance to teach, some were pastors, some were assistant pastors, some were training to be pastors. Some were the heads of ministries, so like the heads of their choir, like the choral director, or the head of women's ministry, or those that were training to be an evangelist for their church. So it was a smattering of people, and very similar environment to Jim, in terms of the individuals asking questions and also working together to answer those questions. What I taught on were the basics of, I'd say, like how building discipleship. So if you're building for what is yet to come, how do you build, in a sense, to lead others? A lot of them had questions, and you could tell there are stories of abuse and hurt in the church. Because, well, how do you know if someone's going to be a good leader? What are things that you can ask? If you're going to hire someone or look for a new pastor, like, what do you look for? Those were not questions that I prepped, and so very much relying on the Holy Spirit to guide those conversations, and he was always faithful to do so. This is how it started every morning. Give you an idea of the lay of the land, too. Anytime you had a phone out, kids are just like, and a lot of them had phones too, so it was not like, ooh, what is this? They know what they are. Every morning, to try to get everyone to come in, they'd start playing music, and they would just keep playing until everyone came in. And oftentimes it's dancing. There was just like, right, this is a dance song, this is a sing song. If they felt like dancing, they were just kind of dancing, moving, like what you saw patients do. And just even patients coming over and giving a hug. Hugs for no reason. It's just like, I see you, I hug you. Very affirming, easy to build connection. So if you think like a fruit, very soft and squishy on the outside. And usually if they trust you that much, then you can go even further in. Almost like a peach, but then once you see the inside, like that hardcore, then you hit on something. And that's where you start to spend time, where I think sometimes Americans tend to be more like a coconut, where it's just like, you got to prove yourself to me, and it's like bang, 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 drill, till you actually get to, oh, there is a little bit of squish in the middle. Here's how then, when we would start class, what it would sound like. So you can see there's a ton of color. It makes American dress look so boring and lame. And all over the place. Patterns, though, everything will match for the women. Like, everything matches. Guys, it's kind of similar. Guys' fashion doesn't change much. You got a shirt, you got pants, and there you go. Boring.
One thing I'll also mention about the music, they like it loud, really loud. I'm pretty sure they just turn it all the way up and everything. So,
the decibel warning on my watch was going on every time we had worship.
Thankfully, I brought earplugs.
Yep. So the other thing too, you'll see, like, one person just started singing. So in this individual was Pastor William, who's a new pastor. He just started singing a song, and then everyone knew the song. They stood up and they started clapping along. That's just how they started. It reminds me probably of how the Psalms worked for the Old Testament people, is you would just say one line, and then everyone else knows the song that you're singing. It was a beautiful, organic expression of worship. And as you saw towards the end, someone just got up and it's like, oh, I know how to play that percussion instrument, and they just start going. We also had, so seeing Jesus in this sense of joy was very evident in worship, but also baptisms. So this is what the worship space looked like in the evening when we would gather for worship. So very dark, very light, though, because we did have electricity. And everyone is packed in there. Everyone's got fans. Everyone has water. They knew where to get water, which for them were bags of water, which you just tear open with your teeth and you suck it dry. Think of like a Capri Sun, but a lot easier to tear.
And you suck it, there's no straw, you just drink
no
right
straw.
out of the bag.
Here's another picture. You can see, so everyone's moving around and dancing because it's just what we do. It's just how worship is. And again, some of the leaders, you can see some of the dialect choir on the far right. And then I had an opportunity to preach 3 times. And initially when I met with Matthew, he's like, do you want to preach for an evening? I was like, sure. Second time I met with him, he's like, do you want to do it twice? Yeah. The last time I met with him before he left, he's like, can you do it 3 times? Okay. And it was an experience because some of it I wasn't as prepared as I would have liked to be, but to see God weave together comments from the day, interactions that happened in that day, and that all come together with a text that God had already set in place for that evening was very inspiring.
Yeah, one thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say one thing about that was, so Pastor Aaron and I met a few months before, just kind of discuss the outline of what we would teach. But other than that, we didn't get together on what we taught or anything. And so it was kind of cool that we were, we'd talk and compare notes at the end of the day or after the session, and we ended up talking about very similar things, like between us. And two completely different environments, but everything kind of related and weaved together. And then even his message at the end is like, that related to what we talked about today, and none of that was coordinated. So that was all God there. So
yeah, oftentimes we'll just say coincidence, and we probably minimize the role that the Holy Spirit has in the church. But it was very evident, almost impossible to ignore. Due to time, I'm gonna move quicker. This is what worship sounded like. So this is a youth choir that they had. Notice them and their leader.
The Lord is my life.
So they said, the Lord is my light and my salvation. But they made it a whole lot more exciting than just the Lord is my light and my salvation. And it's done in a lot of ways where you're tempted to think, is this for show? But it's this interactive component of worship that the only place you probably see here in the States is if you go to a densely African-American congregation, especially in the South. And so you start seeing that there is a cultural influence, which is really beautiful to see this broader expression of church. For baptism, I'll keep talking while this is playing. On the right is our walk. So we walked and sang from the gathering place down to this lagoon that we scoped out a couple days earlier for a baptism. And so there is part of the choir. They say the same thing over and over again. I can't remember what they're saying. The drummer's there. And it's kind of a steep drop, but everyone keeps singing as everyone's taking their time to go down. Be great to do this in Minnesota because we have got lots of lakes. It just becomes a little bit more problematic when it gets cold. But then what happens next? Yeah, polar plunge. There, we'll just do it. Jim's done that before. So there's on the left, on the right is Pastor Matthew, and then Pastor William. So a bit of scripture would be read. Pastor Matthew would announce, like, we baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And then 2 pastors, picture on the right or the left, would be in the river, and they would fully immerse someone and bring them back up. And there were 7 individuals, I believe, that we had, 5, 7, somewhere around there. And each one of them had gone through instruction leading up to baptism. But they waited to be baptized until convention. So it's not just with their church, but like the broader church. So this would be like us waiting to baptize anyone in our church or confirm them until the LCMS has a convention. And then we'd all go there, and then everyone would happen at once. Seeing as they're a smaller church body, it was really cool to see that take place. They're a choir, so this is the ending worship. They have the graduation gowns. But the choir wanted to wear something that they could easily get, and they all looked the same. And I even asked Matthew, said I told them they didn't have to wear the hats, but they wanted the hats as well. So it looks like a graduation, but it's actually just the choir. And then this is us gathered for worship. Now, the youth choir has choir robes. And so different choirs will also have different robes as well. Some of the new friends we met, and then I'll turn it over to Cindy. The kids loved Jim. I did not see him for more than 2 minutes outside of when we were gathered, and because we were the guests, we sat here. Kids were around him all the time. Is there anything you want to add to those?
Yeah, I will say that some of these kids I met a couple years ago, and I remembered, but specifically, so in the top left picture, that girl in the pink are sitting right next to me. Her name is Grace, and I met her when she was 5 at the 2 years ago, and I showed up there, and she recognized me, and she ran up to me and gave me a hug, which was really cool that she remembered me. But yeah, she likes to hang out with us, but all the kids do, and they like touching your hair. And the top right picture, they tried to sell me a baby bird for $5. I said, sorry, I don't. It was a real bird, yes, it was a real bird. And I said, I can't because I don't think customs will let me bring it into the country. I'm pretty sure that'd be frowned upon. So, they're fun.
Yeah, they're very curious. So especially like the hair on my arms. And initially I didn't know what to do. I was like, but I'm like, that's okay. You're fine. Because, I mean, I don't tan at all, so there's just like, wow, look how white that guy is. But then also it's like, I've got blonde arm hair, so it's different than the men in their community that they're used to. Mm-hmm. And it was a very innocent, honest curiosity, and just the smiles on their face, just like, are you okay that I'm here? So here's some more, the bottom, so Jim and more of his friends, after I was done teaching the adults, they wanted to come and show me things, so they'd grab your hand and just lead you somewhere on the camp. They didn't lead me to the bird. I don't think the bird made it.
He was talking to, you were talking to somebody while that was happening, and they pulled me away.
So the little guy at the bottom right was constantly coming up to us going like this, because he wanted something to drink. And we're like, I have no idea where your mom is, but it was safe because this is a large community, church family, and we're like, I don't have any water for you. And he just kind of go, like he was just like, no, I know you do. It's just like, it's over there. And you kind of be like, it's like, I'm not getting it for you. You can get it yourself. So there are some common things among kids.
There was a couple times that he did find a water bottle, and some of the adults were kind of stern with him about doing that. So you can have the bagged water, which I mean, it was fine giving him bottled water, but we couldn't drink the bagged water because we would be more sick than we were. But
yeah. So we also got these flower bouquets that the kids made. They just found the flowers and they gave them to us. I would have loved to have kept them, but my hands are not small enough to hold all the little stems that they were able to do. So that was just this undeserved kindness that we got from the kids, as well as what you see that we're wearing. This material is not cheap. The reason we know is we were in the market looking at fabric, and it was very touching at the closing service. They gave this to us out of thanksgiving for what we had given to them. I have no idea how much it costs. Honestly, the price, even though you probably won't see me wear it a ton, it's just the aspect of they would give so much of their gathered resources to support me, and they haven't seen me in 5 years. Those little bouquets just go along with that type of generosity that we see. So there is Grace as well. She's one of the kids from Zwedru, so you can see her decorative outfit. And then Lee is a new friend that I made. In fact, I FaceTimed with him last week. He is a college student who wants to be an engineer, but he wants to be an engineer for the city to make a difference for Jesus in terms of how he can be an engineer and just do his job honestly. And that's what Pastor Matthew's real goal is for all these communities, just like be Jesus where you are so that they can experience the gospel and recognize it is free to them and your kindness to them. I'm going to go through that. And then that's Matthew's sister, Deirdre.
Yeah, and
Deborah.
Deborah,
thank you.
And she was amazing because she always made sure that we had water. She's also kind of our protector. Like if we ever because of the heat. I mean, the heat in there. Sometimes we had to step out, and she would just kind of be that silent shadow behind us, making sure that we were okay and no one would bother us. So, yep.
All right, Cindy, I'm going to turn it over for you.
Do I really need it? There's a lot. Not
Do you want me
very
to turn
many
slides for you?
people. Maybe.
That way since you don't have a third
There's
hand.
so many hands.
Sure.
Okay, so I won't tell my airport story. These guys did a really good job. I had a delay. I was supposed to fly out on Tuesday, and on my way to the airport, I got a message that said there'd been a storm in Chicago, and so I quickly called somebody to. Yep. So they told me I had gotten on another flight. I got to the airport, printed my ticket. I hadn't. Long story short, I had to go home for 2 days because there's only 3 flights a week that go into Monrovia, and it wasn't the next day. So I had to go home for 2 days, come back. But in the end, it was good because had there been a bunch of us needing another ticket to get there, it would have been much more difficult. So once I got on the plane, it was good and no problems. I was happy to see Matthew and Patience and the whole gang when I got to Monrovia. So it wasn't bad traveling alone. Anyway, got there late, 10:30 that night, and we left I got up at 4:45 in the morning to go to Zvedru. No time for jet lag on this trip. You just kept on moving. So this was the team. We got 7 people into that truck to go 8 hours to Zvedru. So go ahead. So this again is the map. When they talked about going to Zvedru, do you remember the straight line they drew across the bottom? Yeah, that's not how you get to Zvedru. So you have to go up to Ganta and down to Zvedru. So it's a 8-hour drive. 4 hours of those are on pretty decent paved roads. 4 hours are on horrible potholes, mud, curves, awful. So it's a trip that nobody wants to take, but it was wonderful. So we got to, the reason we were going to Zvedru was for a dedication of a church. The county that Zvedru's in is Grand Gita. You'll note, they talked about the heritage, and your heritage or your tribe is kind of based on your county in the country. So Pastor and Patience had never been to Grand Gita, so they were so excited when they got there and got a picture with the sign. So again, we were going there for the dedication of a new Royal Family Fellowship church in Zvedru. You can see the church isn't anything too elaborate. It's just a brick building, but they actually had walls and a roof, so that was really exciting. And they are so thankful for what they have in their church. It was just amazing. Go ahead, let's try the next one. So this is the inside of the church, and they talked about how everybody, the guests, so that was us, had to sit up front on chairs. It's just crazy. They are so thankful for the support, for us coming there, that we care enough to fly to Africa to see them. They are just so thankful for that. And again, give us gifts. They have nothing, yet they give us gifts. Again, colorful clothing, music, it was amazing. Pastor Matthew gave the sermon on that day, and it was on how you are chosen by God. Doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, God chose each one of us. And of course, we all love to hear that too, or need to hear that, but for them to hear that God chose them individually with the little bit that they have over there, it's a message that they savor. It was just a wonderful, Pastor Matthew has just wonderful sermons anyway. The kids love to have pictures with me, and I love to have pictures with them. It's the same at camp. Somebody's always coming up. Can I have my picture with you? Can I have my picture? I wish I could get a copy of all of them, but this was one. So we went back that after the church service, the pastor first the pastor's wife made dinner for us, which was just wonderful, and thankfully put the spice on the side so I could actually eat it. And they told us that we were going sightseeing. So in my mind, I'm going, okay, we're going to go to a park or a waterfall or whatever. Yeah, no. So they got on motorbikes and headed out ahead of us. We were in our Jeep, but on roads that you might not take your donkey on. I mean, they were bad. Half hour through these just awful roads to get to Banana City, which was just the ends of the earth. Truth. It was just far out. This town had nothing, but they had just built a new church. And their new church we would call a picnic shelter, but it was a roof at least. And the mayor of the town had given them a piece of property that they could build this church on. And they were so thankful, so proud of it. They sang songs for us. They were just, we weren't there, oh my goodness, 20 minutes maybe we had to spend there. So we were not there long at all, but they were so grateful. Next one. Nope. Is there a different one? Maybe not. Maybe this is it. Nope. Go back. So they were just wonderful. So we traveled on from there, again, on these same roads, to a town called Tucson. This was a little bit more established town. They actually had some churches already, but they were starting a new church. And so we were there to invite them to be part of the Royal Family Fellowship, for their church to be part of us. And they agreed, but made it very clear that if they were going to be part of us, we had to know that they were only preaching from the Bible. They only taught the Word of God from the Bible. There are several other churches there, and they knew that, like the one young man said, if you asked one of the people from that church how they got here, how they were created, they wouldn't have a clue. They wouldn't know that it was God created the world. They wouldn't know any of that. So he said, we only preach from the Bible. Well, clearly, we agreed with that. And so they were happy to join on with the royal family. And just so, again, blessed to have support from a pastor. That the pastor in Zvedru is probably, I don't know, an hour from them, but to have a pastor so close that was willing to be there for them and support them and help them and teach them, they were just so thankful. So one more thing before I get to the gypsy car. I was so impressed in every one of these congregations, in Zvedru, in Banana City, in Tucson, it was the young men that were leading these churches, like 30 to 40-year-olds. So the story in Liberia is that this generation, like those 30 to 40-year-olds, are called the lost generation. Their fathers, their grandfathers were all killed in the Civil War in the 80s, so they have nobody to look up to. They don't know what life was like before that in Liberia, or what life could be like if they worked hard and had jobs and did different things. And so these young men are very complacent, very happy to get a meal a day, and that's all they really care about. Well, it is very clear to me that God is raising up a generation of men to lead this country, because it just gave me the chills. It was like every one of these groups of young men were just outspoken and said this. I mean, they were the ones who said, we only preach the Word of God. It wasn't the existing pastors or their dads or whatever. So it was just a wonderful experience, and it was just so awesome to be truly God's witnesses at the end of the earth. It was just, that's how you felt when you got there. It's like, this is just amazing. It was just cool. And the people in Banana City gave us gifts, of course. So we had plantains and mangoes and pineapples piled high on our Jeep to try to get it back home again. So we looked like true African travelers after we left there. And this was my meal on the way home in Ganta. So if you remember, we went all the way to the top and all the way down. So way at the top in Ganta was where we had a meal. The day before, 2 days before, when we traveled, Pastor Matthew and I had pizza, and it was really good pizza. Who'd think Liberia had pizza? But this was traditional. I had to have traditional, and it was excellent in spite of the fish heads. It was just really good. But the spice on the side, thankfully, is too much for this white girl, I tell you. Hoofda. So then we are on to camp, and as you can see, I love camp. It's so exciting. So our theme, so it's YCI, Youth Care International, Better Youth, Better Tomorrow. The kids just sing out that chant. They know this is where they need to be, and that it's helping them out. So before camp gets started, we pack backpacks, and we pack the hygiene kits. So we have pencils, pens, notebooks, and then they get those at the end, and at the start of camp they get washcloths, toothpaste, soap, toothbrushes, that kind of thing. So we spend the day before camp packing 500 backpacks, 500 hygiene kits. So it takes a troop to do that. And then camp begins. So you can see it looks pretty quiet. So this camp is in the same spot where the camp pastors conference was. So we use the same facility. So that looks familiar to you, the nice serene trees. And then we have 500 kids. And no longer is it quiet. And we have 500 kids. The registration is open to 12 to 25-year-olds. But we end up with about 50 kids under 12 because a lot of them can't come. If they don't bring their brothers and sisters, there's nobody at home to stay with them, or the cooks or the counselors or whoever's working, they need to bring their kids along or they can't come and help with camp. So, we get some little kids too. Our theme was transformation. We used Romans 12:2. And we were blessed to use some materials from Right Now Media, which we're familiar with here, and it was excellent. There were videos, and the materials were really good. The teachers and the kids really, really liked it. And then camp's over, and they love to get their backpacks on their way out, and they have a new chant that says, "One more week, and I don't think I would survive one more week." They keep us busy. Oh my goodness, it's a busy week. So I just wanted to show, back in 2022 when I started, so I've been there 4 out of the last 5 years, we had 4 teachers, and those were the 4 from here. So it was Matthew, Patience, myself, and Evelyn, if everybody knows her, and a few cooks and a few counselors. Now we're up to 35 staff members, and 31 of those are Liberian. So it's only the 4 of us, Matthew, Patience, me, and Anna, who come from America. So they have grown to do this very well, and it is our hope that by 2030 they are doing this on their own, and that we don't have to, we will still support them, clearly help them from here. For 2 reasons. One, so we don't have to spend so much money on travel, and we can use more of the funds given towards camp. And 2, it may give us the opportunity to start a camp somewhere else instead. So they'll be able to lead this one, and we can start another one. So we'll see what God's got planned after that. So just some thank yous to our congregation. We, again, had Gideon Bibles. We brought a couple of suitcases full of those over that come from Christian and the Gideons here. And my intention this year was we brought some 20 big, full-size Bibles, and I was just going to keep those till next year so we didn't have to continue to bring Bibles over because they're so heavy and just take up a lot of space. But almost every one of our counselors came up to me and said, "Can I take a Bible home? I don't have one at home." So we were more than happy to give the Bibles to them to use. So dental supplies, Brian and Janae gave us 500 toothbrushes and 500 tubes of toothpaste. So that was such a blessing to take those over there and give to the kids in their hygiene kits. And then to all of you, we raised over $10,000 in this congregation. So I can't thank you enough. Camp costs $35 a kid to include, all of the supplies plus rent plus food plus, and so the $10,000 was just such a gift to be able to put towards that. So, and if anybody has any questions or are interested in either youth care, patients can answer questions on that. And if you have interest in Mission 2027, I'd love to chat. Thank you.
If you have any questions, Jim and Cindy will be in the lobby, and praise team can get started. Thanks for coming.